Imagine watching your own father, once strong and proud, slowly slip away, while the woman he married 4 years ago sits beside him, smiling, and convinces him to erase you from his will. That's exactly what happened to me, and you're about to see how I fought back from the shadows. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, or you've watched someone you love be manipulated from the inside, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me because this story is about hurt, powerlessness, and finally getting justice when the odds were stacked against us. 4 years ago, my dad, let's call him John, remarried. He'd spent years alone after my mom passed. The house used to feel like a shrine to her memory. Her photos on every wall, the smell of her favorite jasmine candles still lingering long after the wick had burned down. For a long time, Dad couldn't even say her name without his voice cracking. So when he met Sarah, a nurse from the clinic where he'd gone for a checkup, I wanted to believe it was fate, finally being kind. She had that polished charm, the soft voice, the practiced empathy of someone who knows exactly how to make you feel seen. She'd rest her hand on Dad's arm when she laughed. She looked him in the eyes like he was the only person in the room. And for a while, I was happy for him, really happy. But something changed, subtly at first, like a light in the room dimming a little more each day. Dad's laughter used to fill the house. He was the kind of man who could make a grocery run sound like an adventure. He'd whistle off key, tell ridiculous stories about his youth, slap the kitchen counter as he laughed at his own jokes. After Sarah moved in, that sound disappeared. He still smiled, but it was thinner now, strained at the corners, the kind of smile people wear when they're trying to convince you they're fine. I'd find him sitting in his recliner, TV flickering in the dark, his eyes glassy, the remote limp in his hand. He didn't even notice when the channel switched to static. Something about her presence seemed to drain the air out of him. I have two siblings, Emily and Jake, and the three of us noticed it around the same time. We wanted to like her. God knows we tried. We told ourselves she was just different, maybe a little controlling because she cared. But soon the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every time we tried to talk to Dad, she'd find a way to step between the words. If Dad started telling a story about our childhood, she'd laugh and say, "Oh, John, that was before you met us. You've changed so much since then." She'd say us like it was a brand she owned. She'd redirect the conversation to her grown kids, Lisa and Tom, people we barely knew but apparently couldn't stop hearing about. She'd gush about how proud she was of them, how hard they worked, how they don't have to worry anymore because John's got everything under control now. Every time she said that, a tiny spark of unease flickered inside me. Under control. The phrase sounded rehearsed, possessive. I remember one dinner like it was yesterday. Dad had cooked his famous chili, the one he used to make on winter nights after Mom died, when we'd all pile on the couch under blankets and eat from mismatched bowls. He looked so happy stirring that pot again, humming to himself. Halfway through the meal, he started to tell a story, something lighthearted about the fishing trip he and I took when I was 10. He barely got 3 sentences in before Sarah reached over, placed her hand on his, and said sweetly, "Oh, John, that was before you met us. You've changed so much since then." She'd say us, like it was a brand she owned. She'd redirect the conversation to her grown kids, Lisa and Tom, people we barely knew but apparently couldn't stop hearing about. She'd gush about how proud she was of them, how hard they worked, how they don't have to worry anymore because John's got everything under control now. Every time she said that, a tiny spark of unease flickered inside me. Under control. The phrase sounded rehearsed, possessive. The room went silent. Dad blinked, looked at her, then at us. His shoulders slumped just slightly, like he was shrinking into himself. He gave a half shrug and muttered, "Yeah, maybe you're right." Then he looked down at his food. The sound of his spoon scraping the bowl was the only thing breaking the tension. Emily's jaw tightened. Jake stared at his plate. I forced a smile I didn't feel and changed the subject to something meaningless. Traffic, weather, anything to fill the quiet. But inside, I was boiling. I wanted to grab Dad by the shoulders and shake him awake, to make him see what was happening. But how do you tell your father, the man who raised you, who held you after Mom's funeral, that the woman he thinks is saving him is actually isolating him? You don't. You swallow it. You tell yourself maybe you're overreacting. Still, every visit felt colder. Every glance between them carried an unspoken hierarchy. She spoke, he followed. And every time she used that word, us, a small part of me felt erased. For a man who had built his life from the ground up, who had taught us that loyalty and love were sacred, watching him slowly drift into her orbit felt like watching a house catch fire in slow motion. You scream, but the glass between you and the flames won't let the sound through. And that's when I started to feel it, that helpless, gnawing sensation in the pit of my stomach. Not just anger, not just sadness, something worse. Powerlessness. Because it wasn't just that we were losing Dad, it was that he didn't even realize it was happening. Over the next 3 years, her power quietly grew. She moved her adult children into one of Dad's spare rooms. Temporarily, she insisted, but the spare room became theirs. She began handling Dad's finances, canceling old subscriptions, helping him deposit checks, asking him to sign papers while he nodded and trusted her. Emily pointed out how she'd smile broad when Dad left the room and whisper to Lisa, "Everything's working out just perfect." I started noticing Dad's health dipping faster. He blamed it on old age. We blamed stress. One night, Dad called me to his room. "I want to talk about the will," he said in a frail voice. My heart hammered. I sat down, listening. He said, "I want to make sure you kids are taken care of." I expected the affirmation. Instead, here's what he said. "I'm thinking of including Sarah's kids, too." Lisa and Tom's names came up like they were long-lost family members. The word erase hovered unsaid in the air. It felt like a punch in the guts. I hung up and stared at the phone. My breathing got shallow. I walked around the room, my chest heavy, the anger burning hot and the sadness freezing cold at the same time. My mind spun. How could she do this to us? How could Dad let this happen? I tried talking to Dad, tried gently. "Dad, this is your will. Are you sure you want to include people who aren't your kids?" He gave me sad eyes and said, "I just want everyone to be happy." That phrase, "everyone to be happy," now stung. I realized she'd reframed our inheritance, our father, as a safety net for her adult children. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation in the living room. Sarah was close to Dad, whisper smiling. "You don't want them fighting over you when you're gone, do you?" And Dad shifted uncomfortably. Lisa nodded. "We're just asking for what you promised." Later, Emily showed me a letter Dad had scribbled. "I hereby remove my biological children," something like that, though unsigned. My stomach churned. Panic took root. There came a day when Dad ended up in the hospital. The emergency was sudden. The beeping machines, the white walls, the smell of antiseptic, knowing that he might not come out the same. I sat in the waiting room, grief and fear and rage all tangled. Sarah was there, composed, whispering to a doctor. I watched her. I watched her phone glow her messages. I watched her calm as Dad fought for breath. I knew then this wasn't just about a will anymore. It was about his dignity, his legacy, and our trust. That night, I made a decision. I was done being the passive child waiting for the hammer to fall. I would fight for what was right. The anger inside me sharpened. This was unfair. The feeling of powerlessness I'd held tightened until it snapped. I would make sure Dad's true children were protected and that Sarah and her adult kids couldn't ride off into the sunset with our father's estate. Now, how does one fight someone who's 2 steps ahead, cozy in the driver's seat of your own father's health and finances? I started quietly. I collected evidence. I went through old email threads, bank statements with Dad's name, phone call logs where Sarah asked Dad to just sign this small thing for us. I sat in my car outside Dad's house and listened to muffled arguments through a cracked window, her voice calm but insistent. I recorded the date and time. I documented the moments Dad looked confused, the moments she slipped reinforcement language like, "You don't have to think anymore. We'll take care of you." I coordinated with Emily and Jake. We split tasks. Emily got Dad's original marriage certificate and the old will. Jake scanned tax returns showing Dad's payouts. I found a trusted lawyer willing to give us a consultation on will tampering and undue influence in our region, Pakistan. We learned that if Dad was influenced unduly when he was sick and if new documents were unsigned or prepared under questionable circumstances, they could be challenged. We held our breath. Then we triggered our plan. Dad was weak but lucid one afternoon. We came to him not with anger but with love. I said, "Dad, we found something. We just want you to understand what's happening. We're not trying to fight you. We're trying to protect you." I showed him old papers. I asked questions. "Did you remember signing this? Did you understand this document? Did someone tell you what you were signing?" He looked at me with tired eyes and said, "I don't remember." That was our opening. Simultaneously, we confronted Sarah, not openly, but through indirect pressure. We had the lawyer send a friendly notice. "We're reviewing your representation of our father's will. Please provide documentation that your children's interests are legitimately included and your role is transparent." The letter arrived at her door. She read it with a flush. I didn't need to see it. Her voice caught later at the hospital when she thought no one was watching. The shift in her mask was visible. Then came the final move. During Dad's next hospital stay, while he was still coherent, we had the lawyer bring a standby deed, a new will, drafted with Dad present, with good mental capacity confirmed, designating Emily, Jake, and me as the only beneficiaries, explicitly naming Dad's biological children, and acknowledging Sarah's children only in a thank you clause, no inheritance. The lawyer explained each line aloud to Dad. We made sure the nurse on duty, trustworthy, witnessed, along with 2 independent witnesses. We recorded Dad's affirmative nods, his shaky but clear, "Yes, I want this." The tension crackled in the room. Sarah tried to intervene. "Dad, you don't need to do that yet." But Dad raised his hand. "Stop. I'm doing what's right." It was the moment we'd waited for, the moment of clarity. I can still feel the hospital's cold tile floor under my shoes, the smell of antiseptic in the air, the dim overhead lights buzzing. My heart pounded so loud, I sure the nurse could hear it outside Dad's door. My palms were sweaty, I couldn't stop fidgeting with my notes. My mind cried, if this fails, we lose everything. But there was a fierce flicker in me, a protective fire. When the lawyer read the clause naming us, I saw Dad's lips quiver, his eyes glistened. I thought, this is his sigh of relief. He's reclaiming his children. Sarah's face paled and she looked away. I remember glancing at her adult kids. Their smiles froze. I tasted victory, but also sadness, because it never should have gotten to this. In the days after, I sat alone in Dad's porch at sunset. The orange glow split through the curtains. I let the relief wash over me. I thought of every time I'd felt powerless, every dinner where I'd swallowed my voice. I felt lighter, stronger. I realized my fight wasn't just for money. It was for recognition, for respect, for family bonds that mattered. The climax. The day the final, legally valid will got filed. Sarah arrived at the office and learned her exclusion was binding. She turned to Dad and said, "You promised us." He responded, voice low but steady, "I promised my own children first." Sarah's adult kids sat in shocked silence. The tables had turned. In that moment, I saw Sarah's mask crack. The confident nurse who'd inserted herself into our lives now stood exposed. My siblings and I exchanged glances. It didn't feel gloating, it felt just. For once, fairness had aligned. My body relaxed from its months-long tension. My chest, which days ago felt like it might cave inward, now felt open. I let a breath out I hadn't realized I'd been holding. It was done. Justice had its day. Looking back on all of it, I realized that revenge wasn't about hurting someone back. It was about restoring balance. It was about honoring my father, protecting what was mine, and refusing to be sidelined. If you ever feel small, unseen, or underestimated, remember you can reclaim your story. You can fight smart, you can fight fair, and you can win. If this story got you fired up, smash that like button and drop a comment. Have you ever been sidelined by someone you trusted? What did you do? And don't forget to subscribe, because if you want more stories of betrayal, resilience, and satisfying turnarounds, you're in the right place.